Do not stand by my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am the thousand winds that blow. I am the diamond glints in snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. As you wake with morning's hush, I am the swift upflinging rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the day transcending night. Do not stand by my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. I think out of all the artists out there, the one that influenced me the most was my mother. My mother stood tall with dark hair and large hands. I have her hands. She was a sculptor, creator, nurturer, protector, teacher, friend, all the things that made me feel safe, loved, and respected. As an artist, she was always looking for new materials to experiment with, everything from clay, wood, stone, bronze, wax, and paper, to a telephone pole that was carved and sanded, creating a slim, angular woman with a stern stare. I love having this sculpture in my home, where I see her strong presence standing in my living room. Her work was very meticulous, intimate, sculpting almost exclusively the female form. I love to watch her carve these subtle forms out of various organic materials, the shape of a woman's breast, the curve of a shoulder blade, sanding a piece of marble for hours to smooth the surface of a woman's cheekbone. My dad never identified himself as an artist, but I discovered many years after he passed that he actually had an amazing eye. He always had a 35mm or medium format camera with him, as well as a movie camera hung over his shoulder. Most of the time, he had both on hand, at family outings, birthdays, or quiet moments at home, leaving us with a treasure trove full of great images and memories. Growing up, my older brother, my two sisters, and I all studied art and music, very much with the encouragement of our parents. We all played at least 2 instruments, some better than others, and my brother became an accomplished bass player and jazz musician. I ended up going to art school in Philadelphia at the University of the Arts, where I had an amazing opportunity to study with Ray Metzger, known as one of the great masters of American photography, as my teacher. He was the deciding factor, the inspiration for my decision to major in photography. He stood in front of the class on the very first day, stating very clearly that photography was about light. It was that simple, and I found that it is all about light. The way light plays on its subject, the specific way it might illuminate a room. That was all I really needed to hear. And I've been studying light and composition for over 40 years. In this current series, I wanted to do something very different, something other than just straight photography. Elements began with exploring the many ways in which we contrast and interpret what we see above ground and what lies beneath, what is illuminated or consciously known and what is in shadow. What lies hidden underground includes our lost memories, hidden fears, and lost loves, all the painful memories buried because it's too hard to look at. All of this centers around our great and mythological Mother Earth, her great strength, the resilience at her core, how she sits so strong and loving, giving life, nurturance, and protection, and delivering the chaos and destruction in her endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth. For this piece, I wanted to incorporate my mother's handwriting into the casting, her words, her signature. Looking through a box where she stored her old photos and letters, I was surprised to find a poem that she had saved to recite at her own mother's funeral. It's a poem called Immortality by Claire Harner, and it opens the film. Her handwriting was just as I remembered, graceful and strong. I made copies of the poem, tearing it into pieces and embedding it into the casting, and a larger section of the poem was placed in the nest. It reminded me of how much she loved poetry, how she adored a perfect seashell. The ocean was her healing tonic, and she loved the changing of the seasons. The poem really says it all, from birth to death, from mother to mother. This long line of caregivers, the soil from which we spring and to which we inevitably return. Delirium is just that. It's painful and tragic, showing decay amongst rusted bullets and mangled parts of tossed about trash, the waste and excess that we bury underground. Connecting with the theme of mother in the center of the image, one sees vines woven above and below the plaster surface, like arteries in the human body. This core looks to be her insides, bleeding out, torn wide open, exposed, unprotected. It's also the all too familiar story of the thousands of mothers who have lost their children to gun violence. The pain that never heals, the memories we cannot bury, what lives inside us forever, shaping what we become, rerouting our roots and branches, pain that lives on and becomes who we are. In contrast, you can also see the light, soft white seed pods of the milkweed, mother's milk that heals and strengthens and offers hope. Great seeds will blow, reaching higher ground where new life can begin. Quoting from Kilroy Olzer's The Dead Toad Scrolls, he says, "We walk on the fossilized bones and decomposed flesh of all the people and every species that traversed the earth before our time." This theme is present in the piece Endowment, evoking memories of my grandmother, the sound of her laugh, the way she said my name, sharing her love through her cooking, a warm breakfast, pea soup, and homemade cookies, shading us like an ancient and overarching tree. The beets here, rich with color, living just under the surface, represent what is vibrant and alive, wholesome, reaching towards sunlight, upward, sustaining life. The bowl, a focal point of the frame, with delicate flowers, vines, and grapes, is classical and painterly. The pear suggests the female form, fertile, with beauty and grace, reminiscent once more of the mother, sustaining life, cradled in her nest. At the bottom of the frame is silverware tossed randomly down, buried in the plaster. Here we see my grandmother's china pattern, so memorable, so familiar and reassuring, with its sweet red flowers adorning the rim of each plate she offered us. They are archaeological fragments of a lifetime of family meals with faded conversations, whispers of laughter, forks tapping, scooping up last savory morsels of food from a storied plate. All these are embedded deep in my childhood mythology. When you view Still Point, There's a feeling of an unknown world, a place lost in time. It's evocative of a hillside in an obscure and silent post-apocalyptic landscape. The trees look burnt, void of any foliage except for some stunning dead flowers with their subtle golden tones. Here somehow there's beauty in the quiet and the very lack of color, something calm and surreal. At the center and at the core of the story is the mandala of a spherical tree, representing the proverbial core of the mother, her roots holding fast and deep in the hillside, curved and delicate, tall and graceful, surviving the great storm. I'm creating fictional environments here, as I always have, using light, form, and texture to sculpt a specific yet imagined world. I've done this over and over in my career. In a way, it's the essence of how I approach my work and how I've created so many of my still lifes. Mushrooms, bugs, a snake spine, decomposing food. The earth is angry, like a plague or virus that can't be contained. The inevitable breakdown of life and decay is overwhelming. Looking closer at the details, however, close up with fresh eyes, one starts to see beauty in the chaos. I encourage the viewer to get lost in these fine details. This piece was inspired in part by my fascination with mushrooms, the many colors, textures, tones, each unique, clusters of them like schools of fish. I enjoyed creating this elaborate set where the mushrooms are carefully embedded in the casting and appear to emerge from intricate wormholes. Rebirth was the first piece that I created for this series. Looking below the surface, in the eroded ground, there are veins of cheesecloth running vertically through the frame, defining the central element of, perhaps, a nest, her core breaking down, showing signs of decay. The eggs, like all life, are impossibly fragile. Some are abandoned, too far from the nest, some are cracked and damaged, not cared for or protected. An egg's been broken open here as well, losing its promise, its potential. The nest is the great womb, which here shows signs of infertility, the umbilical cord bleeding out and unstable, much like our ecosystem, which is threatened by climate change, mistreated and in harm's way. In contrast to this bleak landscape, however, tulip bulbs emerge below. In spite of their being upside down and disoriented, the sight of green circles back once again, bringing hope of growth and rebirth. This piece discusses more directly the pain, the fear, and the marvel that is childbirth. The peaches full of nutrients, sustaining life, huddled together in the core of the womb. Here you have these sensual forms, representing the female genitals, but also the ragged edges and thorny rose branches, reminding us of the dangers inherent in life-giving. The outline of the womb, loosely stitched together with thread, is ripped and exposed. My own experience with childbirth and coming close to losing my own life in the process reminds me all too clearly that where there is life, there is also loss. This final piece is iconic and is central to the series. Here she is in all her glory, a proud and noble figure, ancient, organic, floating in forever blackness. I see her dancing free of encumbrances, with no roots to hold her down, independent and yet literally bursting with new growth, fresh greens and lovely branches reaching like outstretched arms, extended embracing all that surrounds her and all that is living. It is consoling understanding that after I die, Mother Earth will turn my decomposed shell into a new form of life. My decaying body will provide nutrients for life that will rise after I die. Until the soil opens up to receive me as its own child, I must take a stand and make the most out of the sunshine and rainstorms that beat down upon all people alike.